Thank you so much. Our next presentation is Turning Crisis into a Learning Opportunity, a perspective from student teacher. Ángel Andrea Ariza earned her degree in modern languages from the Universidad de los Andes. She also holds a Magister in Education from Universidad Javeriana. She has worked as a language professor, as practicum supervisor at Universidad de Sabana and Universidad Nacional de Colombia. At this moment, she is a full-time professor at UNICA. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me, for having me. I'm going to talk about turning crisis into a learning opportunity. I am going to share the screen with you so that you can see my presentation. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, this is my presentation. Turning crisis into a learning opportunity. Okay, so as Lisette mentioned, I work in UNICA, which is Institución Universitaria Colombo-Americano, and I have been the practicum teacher for almost 10 years. Yeah, I'm going to share with you a significant experience that we had last semester and, in this current situation. So what are we going to cover now is, in this presentation, is the context. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the context and explain to you what UNICA is and what happened, telling you about the experience and telling you what we have learned so far. And at the end, I'm going to tell you about the questions that we have, the challenges that we see in this situation. Okay, so in the context. So as I have told you, I work in la licenciatura en bilingüismo con énfasis en español e inglés. We have just one program. We're a small teaching college, and we have also a especialización en educación bilingüe. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk about what happened during student teaching too. So in all the undergraduate studies, they have, opportunities to practice and observe, but I'm just going to refer to the final stage of their practicum, which is student teaching two. So they had taken already student teaching one. So I'm talking about student teachers, obviously. They had taken student teaching one, and I'm going to refer to student teaching two. In this modality of student teaching too, they have to go to schools 20 hours a week. So it means that they dedicate 20 hours a week to their practicum for 16 weeks. And they have to go one day. I mean, no, in ideal situations, they had to go to UNICA one day to meet with me, with the supervisor. So we had supervisor with the mentor. So we had meetings, 2-hour meetings every Wednesday. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit what my understanding of, this experience as being a practicum teacher with my student teachers. I understand, and then my academic studies, my research, is oriented to find out how student teachers develop their pedagogical content knowledge. So based on theories given by Professor Schulman, we know that we have the student teacher, the person, but there are other factors that intervene and move around that help us understand how the pedagogical content knowledge is built. So we have the constructed knowledge, which is the disciplinary knowledge, the knowledge that the student teacher gets at the university when he goes through his undergraduate studies. And at the same time, developing this pedagogical knowledge when he studies didactics and pedagogy, and having these opportunities to observe and practice. And then you have this, when he goes to a practicum, then they has to interact with community, with peers, with cooperating teacher, with his students. And in all these interactions, then he's constructing his pedagogical content knowledge. So that's why I'm saying that it is not constructed by means of the interactions. I wish I could have had this like an animated, graphic, so you could see moving and going, because the interactions are not static, they are dynamic, and it depends. No, it depends on what happens, which sometimes one aspect has more relevance than the other. And I understand that this process is enhanced by means, or it is, enhanced, enriched by means of reflection. And then here we have the idea of reflection that Donald Sean gives us, which is that student teachers and teachers, not novice teachers, we build our knowledge by means of reflecting, but reflecting in action and on action. And then we go through this process. That's why I have called these loops and interceptions. So I understand that student teachers form their pedagogical content knowledge by going through these processes of loops and intersections. So in that sense, I understand that the practicum is like a field space of knowledge where student teachers reconceptualize and also make their previous studies their own. It's not that they're going to learn or apply new things, but that they are going to start to go through that process of reconceptualization of what they have been building throughout their undergraduate studies. Okay? So that's my idea, and that's how I see these processes my student teachers go through. So, as I was telling you, then in the practicum, I'm just going to refer to the student teaching two part and to two scenarios, just because we have other scenarios, but I'm just going to focus on two scenarios. They usually go to public and private schools. And in those schools, the main functions or the main role they have is one being a TA, a teacher assistant, and they go through the different modalities of co-teaching with a homeroom teaching or with a head teacher. And in other schools, like in this one, which is Colegio Nexo San Francisco Asís, they are actual the EFL teacher, and they perform as the EFL teacher. So they have like the homeroom teacher, the director de grupo with them, in the classroom, but they are the language teachers. Okay, so we know what happened. We know that we were very happy in schools. We were teaching, and then this situation came, and then the locked out situation came, and then schools, sorry, they suspended. They told us that they had to stop for a while to think what they were doing. And our student teachers were like, I was really worried, concerned, because we didn't know what was going to happen and if they would continue, and we understood that schools were going through a process in which they had to make decisions. And then in that sense, then I'm saying that we went through a crisis. At the moment, I came across, reading a presentation, and this Italian philosopher who I look up to. I have read his books, and then he said something in an interview which caught my attention. And he says that in Latin, the word crisis, look at this, it comes from the word crisis, come from the ancient Greek crisis, and it means a separating power of distinguishing decision, choice, election, judgment. And I said, okay, we have to make choices. We have to do something. We have to decide and choose, what to do. So either we can, wait or take action. And then we started to think how we could take action. And then we had the two scenarios. And then first, we could continue with some schools in remote teaching, and then it was obvious. And it is something that we were a little bit, concerned, but not very much, I would say, afraid, because the student teachers during their undergraduate studies, they have taken two subjects dealing with educational technology. So they had some tools, and they could, they were not so scared to go to this, even though it is something really new, and all of us know that it has been a challenge. And And also we had to relocate other students because there were schools who said that they couldn't, I mean, they wanted to, like to take their time to think what they were going to do. And also because in some private schools, parents were really concerned about having, somebody who, like wasn't I don't know how to say, like somebody who didn't belong to the school as with their children. I mean, we accepted that situation. So we relocated those students, and then we asked them to do some tutoring in Unica with their peers and to participate in the conversation club. In Unica, we have like a tutoring program in which we assist students who we help students who have problems with the language, with learning English and other subjects. So they became part of that program. And also I had to think about myself because as a practicum teacher, I said, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to guide these students? What am I, no, because I had everything thought about, like a situation in which we were face to face, but not in this remote modality. And then I came across with this, then something that I found very useful. And here I have the link, perhaps I can share with you. And I found this idea and this model because I was exploring models on how to integrate, technology to our practicum. And then I found this Rubén Puentedura's model, and he talks about the advantages of using technology in education. And then I looked at this, for example, and then he came up with this SAMR model. And then look at this. For example, in substitution, he says that technology is used as a tool to directly substitute analog practice with no functional change. And I said, okay, we can do this. Yes, we can take what we were doing, in face-to-face situation and then kind of substitute with technology. Yes, we can do it, kind of adapt it. And look at this augmentation. Technology is used as a tool to substitute tasks and enable functional improvements. And I say, okay, we can substitute some tasks. So then I presented my student teachers this model, and then I told them, let's read about this and study this and think about how we can implement it in your practicum. Then in that planning, student teachers came up with some ideas during our sessions. Remember, I said that we have some sessions together and I promote reflection and authentic questions. So we have this, our concern is, and my question was how students learn and how can we use technology for those purposes. And then they said, and then they were aware of these situations that we had to take into account students, in the schools, students' resources and their connectivity, because some of them didn't have enough resources. So we had to think about how to communicate with them by means of email, and WhatsApp was the only chance we had with some schools. And so that we had to plan simple and concrete activities. They came up with the idea of creating short videos with routines and instructions. And all of them, I mean, the ones who were in that program, they knew how to create those videos by using a Screencast-O-Matic, and we use a Screencast-O-Matic for that. And they said that children, and we know, everybody knows that children learn by doing, that we had to give lots of images, use realia, and something that also we paid attention to was the idea of giving instructions. And it sounds simple, but it's quite complex in this situation. Then, and so the idea of having parents involved. Then our conclusion was that we had to get focused on students' engagement rather on the amount of activities. And we also have to consider that they are in primary school. No, they are that, like being in front of a screen for so much time or having to do many things, was might become overwhelming for them. Okay, so taking into account Professor Puentedura model, we thought about this, perhaps we could plan simple, as I have told you, plan simple concrete activities think about the cognitive load of that, and think about engagement, how the activities were going to be meaningful. I know this is something that we also plan and think about when we are in face-to-face situation. I'm not saying anything new. What I'm trying to make here, I'm trying to make a point is like perhaps we paid more attention to this, that this became more relevant, that we had the real chance to put this really into practice. And with this idea of engagement also came up when they were talking about their peers, the ones who had to face the tutoring program, because they said that perhaps their peers couldn't advance in the learning of the language because they didn't have situations in which they found the use of the language relevant. Okay, so those were the concerns that we had and the insights during this process. Related to schools and children, then we started to rethink about how the teaching of vocabulary was going to be, that they had to use lots of images, and that we had to teach to the phrase level. And they were aware of that, because even though you tell them, the theory tells them, sometimes the student teachers, they don't really, I don't know, they are not aware of that. But in this case, they really started to think about how they had to teach to the phrase level. I mean, not as isolated words, that you can teach isolated words sometimes, but not all the time. And when we were thinking about having parents involved, then they had to think about this, because they had to give some instructions in Spanish. And in some cases, also for children, use quick translations as backup with some vocabulary. Even though you have the images, even though they show them objects, then sometimes they needed some translation. And then it made us think about the use of the first language, and how when we read theory, when we talk to others, we agree that if we use the first language, in this case Spanish, when it is absolutely necessary. But in this case, when is that absolutely necessary? Because sometimes, for example, with parents, and I don't say sometimes, we usually, with parents, we have to give the translation in Spanish, even though we give instructions in English, but we have to give the translation in Spanish, sorry, if we want parents to help us. And also we had to think more deeply in really concerned about scaffolding. How are we going to stagger? How are we going to pace, those activities? It's not just telling a child, do this, and then we'll expect results. And how we were going to assess that as parents were going to be involved in the process. In the case of tutoring sessions, then students were concerned about this, how they were going to give grammar explanations if they had to, and how they were going to provide learning strategies. They were going to provide their peers with learning strategies. And something that I found very interesting, it was that they started to think and reflect again about their own process as language learners. Then here I have some examples of the tasks that we have proposed. Here we have this is a nice calendar that a child created. This is like the months of the year, and then it was fourth grade, yeah. And here we have the family's birthdays, and he had to send a video in audio. In this case, it was an audio, sorry, in a photograph, a picture, and then he was explaining when their family's birthdays took place. In this one, it was an example of the calendar, and that's a girl who created. I mean, in previous lessons, they had to create an avatar. I'm going to talk about it, like explained to us who they are. No, okay, and this is something that happens in the conversation club, as they wanted to make topics relevant, and it was about sustainability and combined with their eating habits. Okay. Then this is what I'm going to focus on more. So this is what we have learned so far. Here, in EFL schools, something that we how can I say that learned, but also I would say that it became this. That's a renewed meaning. This is my ideas here. I'm not saying that we have learned, as I have told you, new things, but that we have renewed meanings for some aspects. For example, in this case, for oral skills, we have always been concerned when we have been in our practicum experiences in the past, that schools in primary school, I'm talking about primary school, are really concerned about students. I mean, they assess children by means of their writing production, and they always want children to write something, and exams and quizzes and words. And then we were concerned about that. We have always been worried about that. And now, perhaps, it is going to help us make them understand that at this stage, the development of oral skills is very important. And when we have children, for example, listen to the videos and create their audios and create their own videos, we are helping them develop their oral skills. And when you give them, like children, for example, the videos, and they have to watch the video many times, to do an exercise, and to practice what they are going to say. We're helping them with rhythm, intonation, patterns. And this is something that is going to help them really in the development of their, of the, the development of the oral skills and the proficiency in the language. Okay. Then something else that we notice is like communication with cooperating teachers changed somehow, because as I have mentioned, our students have taken two subjects related with education and technology, so they have very good skills, and they could help teachers, like explaining to them how to use some tools, how to work with them, and then the communication became more, I would say, more horizontal, and student teachers were really, really uh, grateful, and they were, they said that they developed these ideas, this empathy with their cooperating teachers, because they could like know, really know about their cooperating teachers, and help them with technology, and their conversations became at a level to what can we do, what are we going to do here, give me ideas, help me. And then they felt like that changed, and also that they had the chance to talk to parents, which sometimes is quite difficult for them. And we came up with this idea because that they have to be flexible, and it is something that also sounds simple, but for a student teacher is quite difficult. And that when we are novice teachers and we have the first experiences, we are like trying to survive and trying to plan day by day and think about activities, and we're trying to do that. So asking us to do something else becomes overwhelming. But they had to understand that they had to become more flexible in that sense. Okay. And then in the what is related to the tutoring sessions in Unica, we started to talk about the complexity of teaching, language at that level. And it's not only helping their peers, but they also have to think about their disciplinary knowledge. And as I have told you before, how they have learned the language and had other kinds of reflection, like thinking about themselves as language learners, but also thinking about the language that they are going to teach at that level. And the main concern was about this, because they knew, and thinking about their own learning process, that they had to help their peers to gain confidence, to become independent learners. That is not just a matter of explaining grammar to somebody. Okay, like if you're learning the language, it's not a matter of just learning the grammar and the structures. All of this, we know that. Theory tells us, but I'm telling you, it is just, I guess, I think it is renewed meaning to our student teachers. And these are the main ideas that they came up. That first, we have to think about essentials, that we have to think about the big picture when we teach and integrate. And I'm talking about this with children, and then I'm going back to the previous slides with this, because they had to think about how to integrate what the students had learned, in the first semester. I mean, without in the face-to-face situation, and not with this new situation, how they would integrate what they had learned. How could they bring that and use it for assessment purposes? So we end up having mini projects. We ended up having mini projects and some tasks in which students, had to integrate. And in that sense, it means that if you think about this idea of integration, means that you have to think about the big picture. You have to think about the essentials, but the whole year, the whole semester, and plan in that sense. Hmm? Mm, how to reach the community where they are, because it's not only like thinking about their students, but also thinking about how they could impact, the community, and also how they could cooperate by helping with the use of technology. Here I have an example. Entonces me tocaría dejar de compartir. Yeah, yeah, I have to stop sharing. Oh my God, what a case. You cannot see my screen now?
No, we can't.
There
Not in the moment.
you can.
You're
Oh,
not
I'm
sharing
sorry.
your screen.
I'm going
At this moment, you're not sharing your screen.
to. Okay, yeah, no. I'm going to.
Share it again.
I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, yes. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you. No, okay, a tab mejor. I'm going to show you a hyperdoc, that one of our student teachers helped. You can see it now? Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Here you
Now
have an example. You
you
have an example of a hyperdoc. One of our student teachers helped the homeroom, the homeroom teacher create. Here is a hypertech tools for. It is like a like an integration. The school wanted us to help them in the integration with some content area and the use of technology. So here we have the hyperdoc. It is, with Google Slides, and then and we follow the framework, the EASE 5 EASE framework. Okay, and here at the end, if you can't see here, this is what I wanted to show you. Then the student teacher created a tutoring to create to use Canva, and ask students to create something by using Canva. So that's what I mean. Like when I tell you that student teachers became like, how can I say that their interaction with head teachers became more horizontal in a way, you see? Because there was like this kind of cooperation in terms of what we're going to do and how they could support the cooperating teacher. Okay, so I'm here now. And then here at the end, the last presentation, perhaps I have the last slide, sorry. Here I have, yes, that was how to reach the community. Again, there is a question about scaffolding. How can we help students pace how can we pace the activities? And this one became also more relevant. The idea of teaching how to learn and to help not only like their peers, but also children. And we agree that that we can teach school children in primary school become more independent, and that we can promote metacognition, metacognitive skills in children. Okay, but from reflections, then we came up with the idea that in general, face-to-face is better. That we could do this perhaps because we had the chance to establish some a kind of connection with children before the lockdown, that the children knew their teachers and their their student teacher, they knew them, and they had that connection, so that we could have that communication, and that they knew what students, had studied before with them. And also, like the having the human connection and establishing that rapport with children is quite important, and for children to have real experiences, real life experiences, so definitely face to face is better. What we have learned is something that is going to help us perhaps when we come to face interaction, and there are some ideas that we're going to keep perhaps this idea and try to convince schools that oral skills are very important at this level, that this one we have to think about how we're communicating with schools and with the homeroom teachers and cooperating teachers. Perhaps we can be of more assistance in terms of using technology. And also this question, and this question is also for the teachers in the undergraduate studies, about this, how they are, their understanding of our students, our student teachers, their understanding of the foreign language. And these are some questions and challenges that we have for now on, and then we don't know.
Excuse me for a
Tell me.
second. Could you show us the questions, please? Because you are in this slide of hyperdocs.
¡Ay, my God! No, ¿y por qué no? No, es que yo sí soy tan boba. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm so sorry. Thank you, you told me, because, okay, stop presenting. And I moved to the other, and I thought I was presenting that. I'm so sorry. Okay.
It's okay, Professor.
Okay. No, I'm going to the entire screen because I thought I was using a pestaña, but it wasn't. Okay. There we are. I'm so sorry. I'm going back to this.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
this is the one that I was talking about. I'm so sorry. Okay, and then I was talking about this, about this one again. So I was saying that in general, face-to-face is better. And then you have listened to me that that with the chance of interacting with children and being able to establish that connection and that rapport, this doesn't replace that. It's just that we're going to take into account some of these, these insights, these ideas for the future. And I was talking about how we're going to try to promote, encourage schools to accept this idea. That's at primary level what we have to pay attention to more attention is to oral skills. And the communication with cooperating teachers, the use of technology, and for us in UNICA, also think about how our student teachers are, their understandings, how they understand, or their understanding of the learning of their foreign language. And here I'm going to share with you the questions and challenges that we think we have for this coming stage. So when we were thinking about, I was mentioning thinking about the big picture, remember that planning and thinking about the whole year, perhaps this framework is going to help us. Backwards planning, we have just explored the framework and they had studied that framework in their pedagogy classes, but we haven't used it. Perhaps we have to use it now, that we have to explore methodologies. And in my case, perhaps as I am very interested in the pedagogical, the construction of the pedagogical content knowledge, then I have to go back to technology and think about the TPAC model. And this one I have already mentioned. And this one, there was something that I mentioned at the end. How can we promote ownership of the learning process rather than to get assignments done? Like children understand that they can be co-autores, not that they can participate. They have to be responsible for their learning as well. and how we can promote metacognitive skills in children. So thank you very much. This is what I have to say.
Thank you so much for sharing with us this wonderful project. Some of the comments that our assistants have said is our excellent presentation, very useful information, great presentation. And there is also a question and an opinion from Professor Aleida Ariza. She says, interesting research area, pre-service teachers' construction of their content and pedagogical knowledge. And
Yes.
she asks, what is the pedagogical platform you have built at Unica to support pre-service teachers' construction of their pedagogical and content knowledge?
So I don't get, I mean, what the pedagogical platform, then I have taken into account this, Carolina has suggested me, as I have, she has suggested to use TPAC, and then I'm integrating that. And also this, as I have told you, the model that we use from Professor Puentedura. But I don't know if Aleida is asking me if what we are doing right now we're doing synchronous and asynchronous classes. And so we're using HyperDocs for the asynchronous classes. And in the synchronous classes, we're using different tools. We have, we have, there are many tools that we're using right now to improve our classes. I don't know, that would be the question. Or is like if we are going to integrate TPAC, this is something that we're going to pay attention to now.
Okay, Professor, thank you for your answer. I don't know if the question of Professor Aleisa was answered, but well, we will wait.
Okay, yes, I will see.
Okay, we will wait.
I'll appreciate if Aleida tells me something else.
Okay. There is another question also. How to face this teaching crisis as teacher to help our students to face it too from our classes?
Then I think it is kind of developing empathy, and then everybody's using this word nowadays. But I say it's like a really point of, an idea of having this connection with students, and that the students understand that we are concerned about their emotional lives and also their learning, and it is something that comes with the strategies that we propose to them, with the actions that we undertake, and I have that hope, and I guess I know that students understand when the teacher is interested in their learning, and authentically interested in their learning. They understand that, they know it, they notice when you have this authentic communication, they get it. So
And
I
then
think it might be
motivated for learning.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Okay,
Yeah.
Here's another question. How can we handle the students' stress when a part of the population is dying while we are trying to keep learning and teaching?
That's quite difficult,
Really.
This is quite difficult. Yes, that's a good question, because I had that concern, because as I have told you, I meet with my student teachers once a week, and sometimes we had to schedule other meetings to talk about what was going on with them, like how they were feeling, if they were anxious, what was happening at the moment. And it is a predicament I always have, because I tell them, concentrate on what you're doing right now. Perhaps your academic life is going to help you. By means of learning, you're going to release your anxiety. It's like concentrate a little bit on this, then try to learn something that is going to help you learn somebody else, to help somebody else, and perhaps you can relieve your anxiety a little bit. It's not ignoring the situation. I'm not saying that you have to ignore the situation. I think like you have to look for ways to have my point is like learning, studying helps.
Okay.
Helps to
Yeah,
release
you're
anxiety, to release anxiety.
Okay, Daisy Marcela, thank you so much, Professor. Did you get any information about how parents are facing their kids' school activities? Do you think is there any way students teacher can support them?
Yes, yes, yes. Then I showed you some, like, the pictures of the videos, and you saw that they were cut because we didn't have the permission from parents to show them. But parents, in two schools, parents were really involved in primary schools, and we saw beautiful things like parents singing along with children, singing the song together. Or, for example, in that picture that I showed you, the girl with the tree, with the family tree. I mean, she might have needed, and we know she needed the help of her mother to create the family tree, and then she helped with the video. And also, there were other videos in which children got together with their family, and they introduced their families, and family were there. I mean, present. So then we noticed that parents at the level of primary school, because I'm not talking about high school because it would be another talk, then they were really involved. There was just like 3 cases in which we didn't have any response from parents, and then at that moment we had to agree with the school with the minimums that were going to be expected from the child. you know because it's different when a parent can help with the video, with the activities, and then you receive something from the child. But when there is no help, then the child, then we had to think about other strategies, and it was quite difficult. And then we had to ask the school to communicate with parents, because there was one case in which we didn't receive anything. I mean, we sent the emails, student teachers sent emails, videos, WhatsApp messages, and didn't get any answer. It was one case, and then we had to ask the school to help with that case.
Okay,
But in general, parents helped.
okay, that's good to know. We have an opinion by Liliana Garcia. She says, great, it is not just about completing academic tasks. Students' emotional asks are really important, and in this moment, we have to support them promoting metacognition. So
Yes.
we have a lot of comments like this, like it's a very important topic, and we want to thank you for sharing this experience with us.
No, thank
And
you. Thank you. Thank you. And
and
forgive,
it's very
I mean,
significant
and
for us.
forgive me for the inconveniences. Okay.
Ok, muchísimas gracias, profe, por haber compartido con nosotros
No, a ustedes
este proyecto,
por.
esta experiencia. Y pues ahora quiero invitarla a que nos haga una preguntita para el público, porque vamos a hacer nuevamente una rifa de uno de nuestros libros escrito por un
Okay.
del Instituto Internacional de Idioma, el y queremos pues que usted nos haga esa pregunta para que el primero que nos conteste de los que están ahí conectados por YouTube sea el ganador.
Me, ya la hago, o you're going to pose the question. ¿Quién va a hacer la pregunta? ¿Yo?
Tú,
¿La
profe.
digo de
Sí,
una? ¿La
sí,
digo?
señora. Sí, señora.
Que se me ocurrió. What's the meaning of crisis? In this presentation, according to this presentation, what was the meaning of crisis?
Ok, mientras ellos nos están
Yes.
escribiendo, vamos a escuchar al profe Diego, que nos tiene unas palabras.
No, gracias a ustedes. Sí, sí. Sí, es interesante y también lo que yo les decía en la presentación, que hay cosas que se vuelven más relevantes o que adquieren nuevo significado. Y esto en la vida de un maestro en formación es muy importante, porque como les decía, yo veo la práctica docente como el espacio donde ellos reconceptualizan y reconstruyen sus saberes anteriores y los están reconstruyendo, repensando, y con esta oportunidad se puede, digamos, en esta ocasión, se puede repensarlo, se puede reconceptualizar. Y eso
Bien.
también es interesante.
Profe, tenemos una respuesta, entonces tú nos dirás si es la respuesta correcta. Dice, opportunities.
Sí.
We have
Opportunities, okay, but there must be one which is choices and decisions. Y si hay choices and decisions, de pronto,
oh, no, no, no.
bueno, entonces
Y un
opportunities.
comentario más que nos llega que dice, from Professor Patricia Kim. Thank you very much, Professor Angela. We really appreciate your wonderful and helpful contributions in this cycle of lectures in this very complex crisis we are going through.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I forgot to say something. I don't know if everybody knows, but something that I would like to recommend is the use of Kiro.com. Do you know that? I mean, ¿sí? Kiro.com, ¿sí? Que es el buscador para niños. That's very useful.
Todas las herramientas compartidas que nos puedan dar van a ser muy útiles para esa labor docente. Tenemos un ganador, Luis Alberto, quien sí contestó Choices. Él es el ganador.
Muchas gracias.
A usted, profe, muchísimas gracias y a toda
No,
nuestra
no.
audiencia por haber estado con nosotros durante esta mañana. Es así como finalizamos nuestro ciclo virtual de experiencias significativas educando en tiempos de pandemia. Somos y hacemos historia. Los invitamos para que en las horas de la tarde, a partir de las 2, se conecten nuevamente con nosotros a través de nuestro canal YouTube Ciclos Interidiomas para seguir compartiendo todas estas experiencias significativas que nos ayudan en tiempos de crisis. Muchísimas gracias para todos. Feliz día.